Hey there everybody, Susan here with Pumpkin Hill Stampers. I have a quick and easy demonstration for you today. I'm going to show you how I've made these two panels for this really simple card. Now the whole purpose behind this demonstration is to play in the February challenge by Stampin' Up! To do some simple stamping. But the theme is a just because card, and the rules are stamps, ink, and paper. So no embellishing, no dry embossing, no die cutting, just stamps, ink, and paper. So sticking with that idea, I'm going to show you a fun ink technique that I've used several times, and I'll show you how easy it is for you to get this fun background with just ink and clear block and a mister. So I have three colors. And I have this great big giant block. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set my block over my piece of cardstock. Okay, so my block is larger than my cardstock, and I can see how large I need to cover my block. So I'm going to start with my center color. This is the pool party color. And I'm just going to literally paint my block with my marker. Now I'm kind of painting on an angle. You could go straight across. It's totally up to you. You could also do this with just the face of your ink pads if you wanted to just blot your ink pads on there. We call that smooshing. But you tend to get more ink that way. Now I'm going to add Granny Apple Green down here to the bottom of the block. Now you might be thinking, but that's going to dry before you get done painting that whole block. That's okay, because before I flip it over to stamp it, I'm going to mist it with my spritzer. And my third color is Bermuda Bay. And I do just kind of let my color overlap a little bit when I first get to that edge of color. But then I just marker it right up. So this is kind of a faux watercolor technique. So what I'm doing is I'm painting my block, then I'm going to mist it, then I'm going to flip it over and stamp it. So I have my mister with just water inside. I'm going to spritz my block as much or as little as you want. The more spritz you put on there, the more the water is kind of going to pool and move around for you. So I'm going to get that off of there. Now, folding my paper and my block. Now when I flip it over, it might drip a little, but I think I'll have a minute to position it. So I just flip it over, and I decide where I want it, and then I set it down. Now I'm just using standard Whisper White cardstock, so my paper just kind of splishes into there. I can give it a press, kind of help that ink and water transfer over. I give it a second to set so it really kind of absorbs into the paper. Then I'm going to pick it up, and see, now I've got that watercolored background, and I'm just going to wipe off my block with a paper towel. So there's one way. Now you can see my paper is kind of curled up. You need to let it dry now. Okay, but after it dries, we can stamp on it. So I'm going to set that aside. There's another way to achieve this. So some people have stopped buying the markers. They're only buying the ink pads and the re-inkers. And one way to get this same technique with just ink and re-inkers is with your aqua painter. I think I have enough water in there to do this, I hope. So I'm going to take my re-inker. This time I'm only going to use two colors. I'm going to take my Bermuda Bay, and I'm just going to drop one little drop of ink on there, maybe two. I think two is probably too much, but we'll see. Every time you do a technique like this, it's going to be different. How much ink you use, how much water you use, how saturated it is. It's always going to be a little bit different. So now I'm just going to go ahead and drop a little bit of water from my brush onto my block. A little more down here. Now I'm just going to use my aqua painter, and again I'm just painting my block. So I'm just painting my block. Now as you can see, this time I am much wetter than I was last time. You can see the ink pooling on my block as I go. Now I'm going to switch colors, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to blot out my brush on my paper towel here. And then I'm going to come up here and I'm going to spread the blue. I'm going to spread the blue over the remainder of the ink before I kind of mix the colors in the middle, just so I don't get too much of the overlap. Okay, so my whole block is wet and colored now, right? So now, like I said, this is much wetter than the other variation on this. So this time when I flip it over, I do expect it to drip a bit, but I'm going to flip it over just like I did last time. I can almost tip my block and let the water run a little bit. Then I'm going to set it down. You see how it pools in there, but this time there's also a bit more white space because I didn't use the marker and color every inch of it. The water from the reinkers kind of pooled and collected in spaces, so you have more white space when you do this technique. Okay? So, two ways to get that fun painted background, different effects, both with just ink and water and paper. So, there's that. So, again, your paper is wet. It's going to curl a little bit. As it dries, it will flatten out, just like this one is flattened out a bit. So now, I'm going to bring in my black ink. I'm going to ink up my stamp. Now, this is from the Power of Hope, and you can put this anywhere you want. Let's see. I guess I kind of want it here this time. I want some of that green and the blue in there. So I'm just going to ink that there. Now, this isn't going to actually be the front of my card. However, it could be. We'll see. Like I said, every time it's going to be different. And then I'll put this up here. Let's see. I want to make it. Yeah, I do. I'm going to make it like I did, just so it's not confusing. I almost put it off to the side and made it the front of a card, because look, you could just mount that as is and go. Okay, but I'm going to cut it down for you. So there's that way. So now I'm going to bring in my handy dandy paper cutter. This little tiny one you get if you sign up as a demonstrator for Celebration. Now I know that this square is 2.5 by 2.5. So I'm just going to put my paper cutter in here, slide this in. Now I know I'm past 2.5, but I want kind of the top of the pagoda, just like that. Now I can turn it around. I can come into 2.5, trim it there, and then I want it centered, so 1.5 is pretty much at the end of the space. So 1.25. Right about there for centering that pagoda, and then I'm going to flip it around and do 2.5. So now I've got my pagoda all trimmed out, and then I'm just going to, well, let's even see if I need to trim it. So if I were starting from scratch, I'm not actually putting a card together, but you'll see I've just layered basic black. Yep, I'm going to trim that down. But this would go on there, and then this one I'm going to trim down so that it is. This is 4 inches, so I want to go about, well, we'll see. Let's see. Let's put this about here. And I just want to center that phrase. So just trim both sides a little bit. I'm going to trim a little along the bottom as well. So this would get put onto my black here, and this would get put on my black there, and I could replicate the card even though it would be slightly different. So there's my simple stamping project for you for this month. A little bit of a challenge with that water coloring technique background, but fun. And like I said, every time you do it, your background's going to be a little bit different. So enjoy, have some fun with your paper, ink, and stamps, and do some fun stamping today. Thanks everybody. See you next time.